Ever had one of those days when you're convinced the whole world is out to teach you a lesson? That was the kind of day I had out on a scorched Arizona airstrip. And man, if you think money can solve everything, you've never watched a jet worth 50 million bucks break down in the middle of nowhere with nobody coming to your rescue. Here's a tip: never underestimate who's watching from the shadows, because sometimes the person you least expect is the only one with any answers. You know what I mean? The sun was baking the tarmac like it was punishing the earth itself. My phone was nothing but a dead brick. My assistant kept glancing at me like she expected me to spit gold, and the only thing moving was the heat. I remember pacing the aisle of that fancy Gulfstream, heels echoing off the metal, furious, trapped, and embarrassed. I could practically hear the universe laughing at me. A woman who's always had power, suddenly powerless. So I did what any exec who's tired of waiting does. I stormed out, ready to chew out the first person I saw. Instead, I nearly tripped over a girl dragging a toolbox half her size. She couldn't have been more than 17. Grease everywhere, face, hands, even her hair. She wiped her hands on a rag and looked me in the eye, said, "I can fix it." Yeah, that happened. I actually laughed out loud. She just blinked, shrugged, and slid right under the belly of the jet, poking and prodding wires and valves like she owned the place. My pride took a hit, sure, but when those engines roared to life 10 minutes later, I just stood there stunned. My assistant whispered, "Who is she?" All I could do was stare at that kid. Riley was her name, walking off like nothing happened. No swagger, no waiting for applause. Just quiet, gritty confidence. You ever meet someone who turns your whole sense of reality upside down with nothing but a wrench? Yeah, me neither until that day. I called after her, desperate to make sense of it, and she tossed over her shoulder that her dad was the janitor, used to teach her every manual he found, and now he was gone, so she kept learning. When I offered her money, she just smiled and walked away. It stuck with me, haunted me, if I'm honest. That night, high up my Manhattan office, I couldn't stop thinking about that girl. No degree, no credentials, just raw talent and stubbornness. So I did what any control freak would do: bought the airstrip. Had my lawyers dig up her name. Riley Carter. I watched the city lights shimmer and whispered to my reflection, let's see what she can do when someone actually gives her a chance. Next morning, Riley woke to a convoy of black SUVs barreling down that dusty road. I stepped out, looking every bit the CEO again, and handed her a folder. "This is my company's land now. I want you to lead a new diagnostics lab. Right here." She froze. "I'm not qualified." I smiled. "Exactly why I'm asking." We built that lab with her blueprints, her vision. She didn't just build a team, she built a future in. If you'd seen the way she moved, leading engineers twice her age, you'd believe too. But let me back up a sec. That first day, as the construction crews rolled in and Riley stood there with the wind pushing hair at her face, I saw the doubt. "What if I fail?" she whispered. "Then fail louder than anyone ever dared," I told her. Because sometimes the only way to win is to risk losing it all. 6 months later, the abandoned strip was gone, replaced by a facility that gleamed like something out of a sci-fi movie. Riley was no longer a janitor's daughter. She was chief architect of an entire test fleet. She put her hands on every design, every bolt, every code. That day, the first hybrid jet she built, Skyfire 1, was set to launch. I watched her in the control room, steady as stone, while engineers counted down. As the hangar doors opened and that jet rolled out, I leaned in, asked if she was ready. Her nod said more than any speech could. The jet lifted smooth, clean, like it belonged in the clouds. The room erupted, but Riley just stared at the sky, barely breathing, until I touched her shoulder and said, "He would have been proud." She just nodded. He always believed I could fly before I believed I could walk. Then Twist Media stormed in, investors, CEOs, all wanting a piece of the genius. But before anyone could ask her a single question, I stopped them. "The woman behind this," I announced, "used to scrub oil off these floors. Nobody noticed her until she fixed what nobody else could. Now you answer to her." Some faces turned red. Others clapped. Riley just kept her eyes on the sky. And it didn't stop there. In 1 year, her name was everywhere: aviation summits, news headlines, even classrooms. She revolutionized jet fuel efficiency, built a whole fleet, inspired a generation. But she never changed, still the same kid who once built model planes from cereal boxes under a dim lamp, sleeves rolled up, hands dirty. At the National Aerospace Summit, she spotted her father, old, cap in hand, tears barely held back, front row, right where he belonged. When a moderator asked if she wanted to say something, she stepped up to the mic, and her voice didn't waver. I spent my whole life being told where I belong. Behind a mop, under the hood, out of sight. But my father believed in me before anyone else did. When people laughed at the idea that a janitor's daughter could build planes, he just smiled and said, "They'll see." The whole room stood. Her dad wept. Later that night, I handed her a letter, a little girl from Nebraska, saying her science teacher told her girls can't be engineers. But after seeing Riley, now she knew better. Riley tucked that letter into her jacket. You could see something in her eyes shift. She was building more than planes, she was building hope. Fast forward to the present, morning sun pouring into the glass windows of her own headquarters, jets humming outside. Riley's phone buzzed. It was me, Vanessa, inviting her to lead the next-gen EcoJet project. She just smiled. For her, none of it was about titles or headlines. It was about breaking the cycle, proving that where you start doesn't define where you finish. Her father's words echoed. You're not just fixing machines, you're fixing futures. Now, Riley stands at the window, looking out over the runway, thinking of all the messages pouring in, kids who saw her and now believe they can fly too. She turns to her team and says, "Let's build the future nobody else dares to imagine." Outside, jets slice through the clouds, leaving trails of possibility. And inside, a janitor's daughter turned CEO is about to change the world, not just for herself, but for every dreamer who's ever felt invisible. So here's my question for you. Who gets to decide what someone is worth? The person holding the money or the one holding the wrench? Sometimes justice is just letting the right person take the lead. What do you think was Riley's rise? Luck, fate, or justice overdue? Let me know down below, because this debate isn't over. Not in the skies, and definitely not down here on the ground.